Do you believe that a family dinner can turn into a stage where every dish is just a prop and words are the real weapons? I do, because for the past 10 years, I haven't missed a single evening at the Whitmore estate in Sonoma, California. And every time, it feels like an extravagant performance where everyone vies for the starring role, except me. I'm Lila Whitmore, 34 years old. In my family's eyes, I'm the failed granddaughter. Not as wealthy as my cousins, not famous, not sparkling like the diamonds dangling from their necks. They look at me with a mix of pity and disdain, as if I'm the only crack in the otherwise perfect wall that is the Whitmore name. But the truth is different, a truth I've kept hidden like a dagger up my sleeve, waiting for the day to draw it. The dining table is draped in pristine white linen, silver candelabras flicker, and ruby-red wine swirls in crystal glasses. The servers move with the grace of dancers on a stage. It all looks like a scene from a Hollywood movie. But if you look closely, you'll see the sharp glances, the competitive smiles beneath the polished veneer. Bradley, my cousin, takes the stage first. His voice drawls, each word dripping with smugness. Just closed on a horse ranch in Texas, right next to a tech billionaire's estate in Silicon Valley. Laughter erupts. Glasses clink. Bradley sips his wine, his eyes gleaming with pride. He knows he's scored a point, keeping the Whitmore name tied to power. Not to be outdone, Vanessa, my other cousin, pulls a designer handbag from her chair and places it on the table like a crown. We just bought a villa in Amalfi, private path to the sea, a view of the bay. They say it's priceless. Another round of feigned gasps and synchronized nods, as if they're all admiring an expensive work of art. I sit quietly at the corner of the table near the fireplace. I swirl my wine glass, take a small sip, but inside I find it laughable. This display of boasting repeats every month: ranches, villas, supercars, designer bags. They don't show off to share joy. They do it to prove they're above everyone else. And every time, their eyes find me, as if to compare and belittle. Aunt Margaret, in her deep velvet gown and glittering pearl necklace, decides to close the act. "Lila, dear, you're awfully quiet. Nothing new to share with us?" Her voice is sweet as sugar, but her eyes are cold as knives. I hear snickers from across the table, see curiosity spark in their eyes. They're all waiting for me to falter. Bradley leans forward, his tone soft but laced with intent. "She's still in that tiny rented apartment in Portland, right?" Vanessa feigns surprise, clutching her chest. "Goodness, 34 and still renting. I didn't think a Whitmore could live like that." Laughter breaks out, spreading around the table. I set my glass down, hearing my heartbeat slow and steady. I'm used to this scene. They need a loser to compare themselves to highlight their own success. And that role they've assigned to me. I look up, staring at the candle in front of me. In my mind, another image flashes: the red brick building on Alder Street, where I laid the first stone for Horizon Properties. They think I'm a lowly renter, but in truth, I own the entire block. And not just that. I hold a real estate portfolio worth billions, from commercial skyscrapers to affordable housing complexes. Among them is Whitmore Plaza, the very place my family gathers monthly, unaware they're sitting in my property. I respond, my voice calm enough to make them think I'm resigned. "I like my space." A short answer, but enough to make them laugh. Aunt Margaret shakes her head, her smile bitter. 34, dear. It's time to grow up. A Whitmore must own something real, not live like a college student in a rental. More laughter. I don't flinch, don't react. I just sit there, feeling the power of silence. Because I know the moment to flip the board is coming. The irony is thick. They're mocking me, while this very dinner, from the crystal chandeliers to the extravagant dishes, is funded by the cash flow from Whitmore Plaza. And Whitmore Plaza? I'm the one who calls the shots. If anyone could see inside my mind, they'd see me laughing loudly at the hypocrisy of this family. But on the outside, I keep my face serene, playing the role of the defeated. Sometimes, to win, you have to play the loser first. I know the day will come when they face the truth. And when it does, I won't need to argue or raise my voice. I'll just place a contract in front of them, a contract with my signature, proving who the real owner is. Have you ever been looked down on by your own family just because your appearance made them think you're a failure? If you've been there, leave a comment below to share with me. I sat there, amid the candlelight and fake smiles, telling myself, keep laughing because soon enough you'll see who's really holding the pieces in this game. There's a moment in life when you hear your own blood mock you, like spectators at a circus. That night, under the golden glow of the Whitmore estate, I was the clown they brought out for amusement. A Whitmore that poor? Someone quips, half joking, half serious, the words ringing like a slap. The table shakes with their smug laughter. I look around, seeing lips curled, eyes glinting with mockery. The crystal glasses clink as if joining their chorus of insults. I don't respond. I just lift my wine glass, smiling behind the rim. To them, I must look naive, powerless, hiding behind a sip of wine. But if they looked closer, they'd see the fire in my eyes, the glow of a secret they could never imagine. Bradley, who just bragged about his multi-million-dollar horse ranch, glances at me with pity. That tiny apartment in Portland, I thought places like that were for fresh-out-of-college kids. Vanessa chimes in, her voice syrupy but sharp. It's kind of cute, actually. As long as she doesn't flash that address around, it'd embarrass the Whitmore name. The table laughs again. The sound isn't just noise, it's a mocking melody, so perfectly orchestrated it sends a shiver down my spine. But instead of shame, I find it amusing. They know nothing. In my mind, I see that tiny apartment, the red brick building on Alder Street, the first brick in my journey. They see it as a symbol of failure, but I know it's the crown jewel of my empire. Horizon Properties, the company I built from meager savings, is now a powerhouse. And that pathetic apartment? It's the gem in my crown. I smile, letting them think I'm defenseless. Aunt Margaret raises an eyebrow, her lips curling as if to swallow the last shred of my pride. Dear, you're 34. Men, career, property. You have nothing. How long do you plan to live off the Whitmore name? I don't rush to react, because I know every insult they hurl today will make tomorrow's shock that much sweeter. A secret is a marvelous weapon. When you hold one, you don't need to shout to prove yourself. You just stay silent and let the truth explode on its own. In that moment, I recall my early days on Alder Street. The cramped apartment, peeling ceiling, freezing winters. But to me, it was a real start. I ate instant noodles for weeks to afford rewiring the entire block. I stayed up nights reading contracts, arguing with banks, learning to stretch every dollar. While my family squandered money on frivolous pleasures, I spent every cent building something lasting. They called me poor. I called myself patient. And tonight, as they laugh, I know I was right. A Whitmore renting? Bradley shakes his head, as if I've committed a crime against the family. Vanessa adds, you should move back in with Dad. At least that house has enough dignity to save face. All eyes turn to me. A second of silence, then the clatter of cutlery resumes, mingling with their laughter. They think they've crushed me, but in truth, they've pushed me right where I want to be, the underdog. And from that position, the comeback will be deafening. Do you know the feeling of being so underestimated that you suddenly feel free? They see me as nothing, so they don't guard against me. They think I'm weak, so they don't defend themselves. And that gives me the chance to turn the tables. I take another sip of wine, smiling faintly. In that moment, I see them as children playing pretend with sandcastles. They don't know that one wave, me, will bring it all crashing down. Aunt Margaret delivers the final blow, her voice firm like a judge's gavel. Dear, they say a Whitmore without property isn't a true Whitmore. The table roars with laughter. I laugh too, but in my smile, there's something they don't understand. I'm the only Whitmore who truly embodies the name, not through ostentation, but through real value. As their laughter echoes, I glance out the glass window. Sonoma's city lights twinkle like scattered pearls. I think to myself, keep laughing, because soon those pearls will shatter in your hands. There are moments when silence is heavier than thunder. That night when my father, Richard Whitmore, set his wine glass down, the entire estate fell into that kind of silence. He looked around the table, his gaze lingering on each face, then sighed. Whitmore Plaza was sold 6 months ago. The new owner, Horizon Properties, has just requested a full audit. His words sliced through the air like a blade. The clatter of forks dropping onto plates rang out. The fake laughter from moments ago vanished, leaving a heavy void where I could hear my own heartbeat. For a few seconds, no one spoke. I saw the color drain from Bradley's face. He swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly, as if afraid someone had just uncovered his secret. I knew what Bradley feared. I knew all too well. $2 million, meant for repairing the plaza's roof, had turned into a lavish stable at his Texas ranch he'd just bragged about. Vanessa, my cousin, lost her triumphant smile. Her hand gripped her wineglass tightly, her eyes darting as if calculating how many fraudulent invoices might be exposed. If you've seen my previous video about Vanessa and her financial tricks, you'd understand why this moment left her pale. Aunt Margaret leaned forward, her voice trying to stay calm but quivering. Horizon. What company is that? Who's behind it? After a moment of stunned silence, the table erupted. No way, Bradley snapped, his voice breaking. An audit? What the hell are they looking for? Vanessa shot back, her hands still shaking. Aunt Margaret slammed her fork down. The Whitmore name still has weight. The new owners wouldn't dare touch us. I sat still, smiling. If they knew the new owner they mocked was sitting right beside them, sipping wine from a glass humbler than anything they flaunted, they'd be speechless. Bradley muttered to himself, head bowed. If they check. That amount. No, it's impossible. Sweat rolled down his temple. In the candlelight, I saw his face twist with worry. Vanessa, trying to maintain her composure, sat up straight, smoothing her hair, and said with haughty confidence, "Whoever they are, they'll need us. Whitmore Plaza is tied to the Whitmore name, and that name isn't easily replaced." She said it, but her eyes avoided mine. I saw the panic in them. She knew her inflated invoices could ruin her reputation overnight. Aunt Margaret, with her age and arrogance, chose denial. It's probably just a stunt. A Whitmore can't be toppled by some nobody company. We just need to find out who's behind Horizon. I laughed inwardly. She'd hit the heart of the matter. Who's behind Horizon? And the answer was the person she'd been mocking for months. The air at the table grew thick. Whispers, hurried glances, everyone calculating their escape route. I leaned back in my chair, listening, noting every expression. It felt like watching a poorly acted play, where the actors just realized the script was no longer in their hands. If you want to understand how my family built an empire only to dig their own grave, check out my previous video on this channel. I stayed silent, because silence makes them expose themselves. The more they panicked, the stronger I felt. A mix of bitterness and satisfaction. Bitterness because my own blood revealed their greed. Satisfaction because justice was about to be served. Maybe you're wondering, why didn't I reveal right then that I was Horizon Properties? The answer is simple. Every truth needs to be unveiled at the right moment, so the shock becomes a lesson, not just news. My father, Richard, was the only one who stayed calm. He took a sip of wine and said, "They'll audit. And I'm afraid this time, the name alone won't be enough. We need to prepare for the worst." I looked at him, a mix of emotions rising. My father, who once dismissed me, was now one of the few who saw the name wasn't an invincible shield. Perhaps a part of him realized the world had changed. The whole family trembled, argued, scrambled to save themselves, unaware that the enemy they feared, Horizon Properties, was sitting right beside them, quietly savoring wine and smiling at the scene. I, the one they mocked as the poor renter, held the key to their fate. Have you ever seen a powerful family sit together, not planning for the future but panicking to hide their past? That's what I witnessed after my father dropped the bombshell. Whitmore Plaza had changed hands and an audit was looming. In that moment, the once arrogant faces twisted with fear. The dining table, once a picturesque scene, turned into a battlefield of desperate souls. Bradley spoke first, wiping sweat from his brow, his voice urgent. "We have to stop this. I know people in the Portland mayor's office. They can make calls, delay the audit." Vanessa nodded frantically, as if grasping a lifeline. "Right, and I have a friend at the bank. We can make the loan documents look cleaner. If Horizon just skims the paperwork, they won't find anything." I sat still, propping my chin, observing. These self-proclaimed business titans now resembled cheating students scrambling to hide their test answers. Aunt Margaret, ever convinced the Whitmore name was an eternal passport, spoke with unwavering certainty. No need to worry. The Whitmore name carries weight. Let Horizon see that crossing us is their biggest mistake, a subtle threat, and they'll back off. I nearly laughed. The Whitmore name? A rotting relic thanks to their schemes, yet she saw it as their ultimate weapon. The irony was rich, knowing I, the one she called the family's shame, held the blade. Bradley tapped his fingers nervously on the table. No, we need to act now. If they dig into the roof repair funds, I could be in trouble. Vanessa snapped, her voice sharp. If you're in trouble, we all are. Don't forget my construction contracts went through the plaza. If they're exposed, we all go down. They started bickering, voices overlapping, tension ready to explode. I sat silently, sipping my wine, feeling both amused and bitter. You know, there's a strange comfort in sitting in a chaotic room when you're the only one who knows the full script. I didn't need to join the argument. I just watched, like a director seeing actors scream on stage. A sarcastic thought crossed my mind. They're plotting how to fight me. If you're curious why I chose silence over action, check my previous videos, where I talk about my startup days, when I learned timing is the sharpest weapon. Aunt Margaret, still commanding, spoke as if she could order the world. We'll arrange a meeting, invite Horizon's representatives and show them that crossing a Whitmore is their worst mistake. Bradley nodded, his eyes sparking with hope. Yes, social pressure. Who'd dare touch the Whitmore name? Vanessa added, we'll spread rumors, say Horizon's a foreign company with dirty money, hit them before they hit us. I sipped my wine, hiding a smile. They truly believed they could intimidate Horizon when Horizon was me. I quietly observed my family, those who'd belittled me, now revealing their true faces, fear, greed, helplessness. Two emotions stirred within me. One was bitterness. This is my family? Every word, every choice reeked of desperation. The other was satisfaction. They were tying their own nooses, setting traps they'd fall into tomorrow. My father, Richard, had been silent. He set his glass down, looked around, and said in a hoarse voice, you're all thinking too simply. Horizon isn't easily bullied. If they dare audit, they're not afraid of the Whitmore name. We need to prepare for the worst. Everyone fell quiet. Even I felt a flicker of respect in that moment. Though he'd once dismissed me, he was clear-headed enough to see the truth. Sitting there, I saw two parallel worlds. One was my family, clinging to a faded name, scrambling with connections and schemes. The other was me, holding the key to everything, waiting silently for the moment to turn the tide. It's strange to see a mighty clan tremble like cheating students hiding their work. And I, the failed daughter, was the one grading their final exam. They schemed, planned, even imagined forcing Horizon to its knees, unaware that Horizon was sitting right beside them listening to every word, memorizing every face. I smiled softly, thinking, keep going because tomorrow, when the curtain falls, you'll see who truly holds the power. Have you ever dreamed of walking into a room where every eye locks onto you? Not for your appearance, but for the truth you carry? I've dreamed of that moment, and today it became reality. The Whitmore Plaza boardroom sits on the top floor, with wide glass windows overlooking Portland's skyline. That morning, the sky was gray, like a curtain waiting to be drawn, heralding a storm. I pushed the door open. My steps echoed on the marble floor. No more simple dresses or worn shoes, just a tailored navy suit, polished leather heels, and a leather briefcase full of documents. In that moment, I saw my family's faces. They huddled at the far end of the long table, like cornered animals. Bradley's jaw dropped. Vanessa's pen fell. Aunt Margaret clutched her chest, and my father, Richard, just sat, stunned, his eyes disbelieving. I set my briefcase at the head of the table, took a deep breath, and said clearly, word by word, I am Lila Whitmore. I am the founder of Horizon Properties. And for the past 6 months, I've been the new owner of Whitmore Plaza. The room went deathly silent. No chairs shifted, no pens tapped, just my steady heartbeat mingling with their ragged breaths. Bradley jumped up first. No way! You're just a broke renter in Portland. You can't possibly… I cut him off. my voice calm. Exactly. I'm the renter in your eyes. But you forgot. No one checks the real owner's name on the paperwork, and you didn't notice when you signed off on those roof repair invoices. His face flushed, as if every vein was bursting. Vanessa stammered, Lila, but how could you run a company? You're just. I met her eyes, memories flooding back, her mocking me, calling me the failed kid, urging me to move back with Dad to save face. I smiled, half pitying, half sarcastic. I'm just someone who works, not someone who brags. That's the difference. I turned to my father. He said nothing. His face was pale, his hands gripping his pen until his knuckles turned white. In his eyes, I saw shock, fear, and strangely, a hint of suppressed pride. Dad, I said softly, this is the truth you never wanted to hear. I didn't fail, I just chose a different path. He nodded slightly, as if learning to accept what he'd avoided his whole life. Do you know the feeling of standing in a room where every gaze shifts? They once saw me as a failure, now they saw me as the judge. Their silence was heavy, but to me it was a triumphant anthem. I didn't need to shout, I just let the truth speak. I opened my briefcase, pulled out a thick stack of documents, and slammed them on the table. Here, I said, is Horizon's full audit of Whitmore Plaza. Every shady expense, inflated invoice, embezzled dollar, item by item. And today, we begin the review. The room was silent. I heard their dry swallows. They knew the game was over. Bradley slumped back, his chair creaking. Vanessa looked away, avoiding my gaze. Aunt Margaret gasped. You dare do this to your own family? I replied evenly. No, Aunt Margaret. The family did this to itself. I'm just pulling back the curtain. All their lives, they believed the Whitmore name was an impregnable fortress. But now, they sat exposed before the truth. That fortress had cracked long ago, and I was the one holding the light. Maybe they saw me as a traitor, but in my heart, I knew I was doing the right thing, saving my great-grandfather's legacy before they destroyed it completely. In that moment, I saw the reversal. Those who mocked me now stammered, trembled. Those who called me the shame now sat listening, awaiting my judgment. Power doesn't roar. It's silent, sharp, and undeniable. I stood tall, my gaze sweeping over each relative, and said, this is just the beginning. Everything you fear will come to light, and this time there's no hiding. The air was thick, ready to burst. Have you ever seen a proud castle crumble brick by brick, not from a sledgehammer, but from its own weight? I have. And that castle was called Whitmore. I opened my briefcase, pulled out a thick stack of documents, and placed them on the gleaming wooden table. The sound of paper hitting wood was crisp, like a blade slicing through the already heavy air. For the past 6 months, I said, my voice clear, Horizon has conducted a comprehensive audit of Whitmore Plaza. These are the results. No one breathed loudly. It felt like the room was holding its breath. I opened the first page and slid it toward Bradley. Dear cousin, this shows a $2 million expense for plaza roof repairs. Oddly, that money went straight to a real estate company in Texas, one registered in your name. Bradley paled, standing abruptly. No, it's not. It was just a loan. I'll pay it back. I looked at him, my lips curling with sarcasm. You call building a stable in your Texas ranch roof repairs? Must be a sturdy roof for horses. A few board members stifled laughs, but no one defended him. Bradley sank back, hands covering his face, shoulders trembling. The once confident braggart was now an exposed fraud. I flipped to the second file, placing it before Vanessa. And dear cousin, here's a series of construction contracts handled by your husband's company. Every item was inflated 3 times the market rate. For example, replacing light bulbs, $900. Repainting a railing, $15,000. Care to explain? Vanessa froze, her trembling hands clutching her water glass. Her face flushed, then paled. It's overhead. Consulting, project management, she stammered, her usual arrogance gone. I tilted my head, mocking. Impressive. A tiny railing needs $15,000 in consulting. Maybe it leads to paradise? Murmurs rose around the table. Vanessa looked down, biting her lip until it bled. Finally, I pulled out a small but sharp document. Aunt Margaret, I'm sorry to bring this up, but records show you received multiple commissions from subcontractors listed as image consulting fees. Ring a bell? Margaret slammed her hand on the table. I only took thank you gifts. It's standard practice. I'm the one who kept the Whitmore name strong. I met her gaze, cold. You call that strength? I call it selling the name cheap. They didn't buy your prestige, they bought your silence. She froze, collapsing back into her chair, her pearl necklace trembling. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, not arrogance. The room felt heavy as lead. The sound of flipping pages was chilling. I read out every shady expense, every inflated contract, every trace of greed. Each piece of evidence stripped away another piece of their mask. Bradley kept his head down, avoiding eyes. Vanessa trembled, gripping the table's edge. Margaret sat rigid, staring into space. Each blow unraveled the family in silence. Maybe you think I was gleeful exposing them. Part of me was. I'd waited for this moment. But inside, I felt pain. This was my family, people I'd shared dinners with, shared blood with. Yet now, they sat like strangers, cornered by their own truth. But the truth, however painful, must be spoken. Silence means complicity, and I'd been silent long enough. My father, Richard, sat quietly. When I paused, he looked up, his eyes weary. You did all this? I nodded. Yes, Dad, and I'll do more. Not to humiliate anyone, but to save what you all forgot, the true Whitmore legacy. He closed his eyes, his face torn between shame and acknowledgement. I knew, perhaps for the first time, he saw I wasn't the failed girl they mocked. I gathered the documents, my voice calm but firm. This is just the start. More truths will come to light. No one is exempt. The room sank into silence. I heard their heavy breaths, the cracks in their gazes. Have you ever seen those who always held their heads high suddenly bow them in a single moment? That's what I saw after placing the audit files on the table. Bradley broke the silence first, pushing his chair back, his voice trembling. Lila, please. It's not what you think. I just borrowed the money. I'll pay it back, double. Just give me time. The word borrowed sounded so cheap. I gave a faint smile. You borrowed our great-grandfather's legacy to feed your lavish hobbies, but a legacy isn't your personal bank. Vanessa jumped in, her eyes desperate for an escape. Lila, we're family. Don't turn this into winners and losers. Let me explain. Those contracts, they were just to maintain the lifestyle expected of a Whitmore. I tilted my head, sarcastic. A lavish lifestyle isn't a legal excuse to triple a railing's cost. If you want, I can send you the real market quotes for reference. My father sat, hands trembling. He looked at me long, his eyes mixing regret and weakness. Daughter, you have to understand. I let things go too far. But it wasn't because we're bad. It's just, I didn't know how to stop. I sighed. For years, I'd longed to hear him call my name with respect. Today, he finally looked at me not as a failed child, but sadly, it came in this context. Dad, I said firmly, you didn't know how to stop, so I had to. You turned the legacy into an ATM. I chose a different way, building with real value. He closed his eyes as if my words were knives cutting his heart. Bradley bowed his head, out of arguments. Vanessa pursed her lips, eyes wet, but still trying to hold her posture. Margaret sat silent, face pale. All their lives they thought power meant a name, that wealth meant arrogance. Now they faced the truth. Real power lay with the one they'd underestimated most. As I finished my presentation, phones started buzzing. Board members whispered to each other. One turned their laptop toward me. Portland's biggest financial news outlet had just published Portland's quiet entrepreneur, Lila Whitmore, the mysterious owner of Horizon Properties, behind the Whitmore Plaza acquisition. Below the headline was a photo of me in my Navy suit entering the boardroom that morning. The flash outside had caught the moment. My family froze. They weren't just exposed to me. They were exposed to the world. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but what came was a quiet sadness. Why did it take this for them to see me? Why did kinship have to be tested by scandal, by public shame, to make them listen? Still, I knew I couldn't waver. If I faltered, everything would slide back. I'd been silent long enough. Now was the time to be resolute. I looked at them one by one. Do you know why Horizon exists? Because I was tired of seeing the Whitmore name used to cover greed. I don't want our great-grandfather's legacy remembered as a financial farce. I want it remembered for lasting projects, protected communities. My voice echoed in the room, not loud but heavy as a hammer. Bradley whispered, "What do you want from us?" I replied slowly, "I want you to remember the real legacy. Not mansions, not pearls, not luxury cars, but homes for workers, small shops sustained, residents protected from the greed of owners." No one spoke, but in their eyes I saw shock mixed with awakening. They couldn't argue. The truth was too clear. I knew this wasn't a complete transformation, but it was the first crack in their wall of arrogance. And that crack would spread until the wall collapsed. The media called me Portland's quiet entrepreneur. But in that boardroom, I didn't need titles. I just needed them to understand I was the one preserving the true legacy. Someone once said, "Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself." I never believed that. Until today, sitting in that boardroom, watching my family tremble before papers bearing their own signatures. After exposing each wrongdoing, the room fell into a terrifying silence. No more arguments, no more weak excuses, just heavy breathing, averted eyes, and the weight of shame on every face. I looked at them, once so proud, once so dismissive, now small, like students caught cheating. In that moment, I knew I held the power to destroy them or give them a chance to rebuild. Part of me wanted to end it all, to let the press publish stories of their investigations, to see Bradley lose his ranch, Vanessa leave her lavish parties empty-handed, Margaret confess her wrongs before the crowd she once scorned. But another part, the part that still believed in family, in our great-grandfather's legacy, spoke. If you destroy them, you destroy the chance to restore the Whitmore name. And I chose that part. I stood looking directly at them. I won't destroy you, but from now on everything changes. Here's the deal. I turned to Bradley, who was sweating, head bowed. You'll join Horizon's community projects. Start with the affordable housing program in Portland. I want you on site, talking to working families, learning what a real roof means, not a horse stable. Bradley looked up, stunned. He opened his mouth to protest, but sighed and nodded. Perhaps for the first time, he saw no way out. I turned to Vanessa. You'll work in the veteran support program. No more ball gowns, no more designer bags. You'll serve meals, listen to their stories of sleeping on the streets. You'll learn to value a person by their heart, not inflated invoices. Vanessa bit her lip, tears streaming down. In her panicked eyes, I saw a faint spark, maybe of realization. I faced Aunt Margaret. She sat rigid, her pearl necklace trembling with each breath. You'll advise the Community Scholarship Fund. You thought the Whitmore name opened every door. Now use it to open opportunities for kids who've never been valued. She opened her mouth to object but stopped. I'd never seen her silent so long. Behind her still proud facade, I knew she'd reached her limit. Finally, I looked at my father. He met my gaze, no longer avoiding me. "Dad," I said, "from now on, you'll learn business again. Not as the one giving orders, but as a student, learning from the daughter you underestimated. If you want to regain trust, you start from zero." Richard nodded slightly, eyes red. "I agree," he whispered. "I've lost everything, and now I just want to learn to keep what matters." Saying those words, I felt no relief. Forgiving is harder than punishing. Punishment takes one cold decision. Forgiveness demands your heart endure pain again to give others a chance. But I knew, if I only destroyed, I'd be no different from them, using the legacy as a tool for greed. Bradley stayed silent, his bowed face showing a hint of gratitude. Vanessa wiped her tears, whispering, "I'll try." Margaret nodded faintly, her pearls still trembling as if she hadn't yet swallowed her pride. My father, Richard, placed his hands on the table, trembling but resolute. I knew this time he truly heard me. I looked around the room, my voice firm. Forgiveness doesn't weaken me. It makes me stronger. Because I can do what you never dared, put the community above ego. No one replied, but in that silence I felt a change, small, fragile, but real. Do you believe a family accustomed to fine wine, red carpets, and ball gowns could sit on the floor, string lights, and hand out sweets to kids? I didn't. Until today, at the restructured Whitmore Plaza, I saw it with my own eyes. Whitmore Plaza no longer carried the cold, polished look of its power monument days. The old balconies were repainted. The central garden bloomed with flowers and new wooden benches. The courtyard buzzed with laughter, the smell of fresh cookies mixing with hot cocoa. We held the first community festival post-restructuring. No expensive wine, no VIPs, no swarming reporters. Just plaza residents, working families, veterans, kids, and the Whitmores in roles they never imagined, serving. I saw Bradley, once proud of his Texas ranch, struggling to hang fairy lights with an elderly veteran. His hands fumbled, the cords tangled. The veteran laughed, clapping his shoulder. Bet you've never done this before, huh? Bradley blushed, smiling awkwardly. I usually hire people for this. From a distance, I saw his eyes soften. Maybe for the first time he felt the difference between paying someone and doing it himself. Maybe he realized those 2 million embezzled dollars could never buy this simple feeling. Vanessa sat with kids, piping icing onto cookies. Her usual glamorous gown was replaced by jeans and a sweater. An 80-year-old giggled. Your heart looks awful. Vanessa laughed, holding up her misshapen cookie. I'm used to signing contracts, not drawing hearts. The kids roared with laughter. And from afar, I saw Vanessa's smile. Not stiff, not forced. It was light, truly. Beautiful. Maybe for the first time in years, my cousin smiled for something simple, not camera flashes. My father, Richard, sat on a wooden bench outside, next to an elderly resident who'd lived at the plaza since my great-grandfather's time. I remember, the man said. Your grandfather used to check every apartment himself, talking to every family. He said a building only lives if its residents' hearts still beat. I saw my father bow his head, hands clenched. He listened intently, not interrupting, not boasting. His eyes glistened. I knew perhaps for the first time he was reminded of the true responsibility of the Whitmore name. Aunt Margaret, who once declared the Whitmore name an eternal passport, sat quietly in a corner, watching. She didn't speak, didn't command, didn't order. She sat, holding a cup of hot cocoa, eyes on the kids playing. Her usual pearl necklace didn't sparkle under chandeliers, but glowed softly under paper lanterns. I noticed her eyes were red. Maybe she was thinking of the years wasted believing power lay in display, not in moments like this. I walked slowly around the courtyard, watching my family. A strange feeling spread within me, relief and sorrow. I'd prepared for them to collapse in community hatred. Instead, I saw them blend in, awkwardly, clumsily, but genuinely. I realized forgiveness isn't a one-time gift. It's a journey where each person pays the price with actions, with daily change. A middle-aged woman, an old plaza resident, whispered to me, "That blonde girl is a Whitmore? Never thought I'd see her wiping tables for kids." I smiled. Yes, that's her. Sometimes, to find real value, you have to lose the high heels. The woman laughed, and so did I. In that laughter was both irony and hope. Watching Bradley hang lights, Vanessa decorate cookies, my father listen, Margaret stay silent. I saw clearly. When they stooped to serve, the legacy truly came alive. The legacy isn't in cold stone walls or glossy financial reports. It's in a child's laugh as they bite a warm cookie. It's in an old resident's handshake. It's in my family's eyes, finally looking at the community as equals. I laughed softly, thinking, who'd have thought those who fought to flaunt ranches, villas, and designer bags would now take pride in hanging lights, baking cookies, handing out flyers? Ironic, but beautiful. That evening, as everyone gathered in the courtyard, I stood and spoke. Whitmore Plaza was once a symbol of greed, but today I see it transformed, not by me alone, but by everyone here, the residents and my family. A legacy isn't in wealth, it's in the heart of the community. Silence fell, then applause erupted. I saw Bradley wipe his eyes. Vanessa smiled through tears. Richard squeezed the hand of the old man beside him. Margaret sighed, but her faint smile was no longer fake. In that moment, I realized my family was starting to change. Not completely, not perfectly, but the seeds were sprouting. And like the plaza, the true legacy only lives when passed from one heart to another. Have you ever seen a family torn by greed sit together at a simple table, sharing food with those they once scorned? I have, and it's a sight that made me believe every crack can be mended. That night, Whitmore Plaza's courtyard glowed with paper lanterns. Kids ran around with balloons. The smell of grilled corn, fresh cookies, and hot soup rose from small stalls. No fine wine, no elite banquet, just the warmth of community. My family, once accustomed to velvet chairs, sat with residents at long wooden tables. I saw Bradley carrying trays, clumsily setting plates before kids. One child asked innocently, "Are you a waiter here?" Bradley froze, then laughed. "Today I guess I am." In his smile, I saw relief. For the first time, he stepped out from the shadow of numbers and boasts. Vanessa sat with local women, eating and laughing loudly. A kid smeared icing on her cheek. Instead of frowning, she laughed, wiped it off, and took a bite of the cookie. I remembered the Vanessa of lavish parties, always adjusting her gown, scanning others. This image was so different. And for the first time, I saw my cousin truly beautiful, not for designer labels, but for her carefree smile. My father sat beside the elderly resident, listening to stories of the plaza's early days. I saw him nod, asking for details. When the man paused, my father turned to me, saying softly, "Daughter, now I understand what it means to preserve a legacy. Not money in a vault, but the memories and lives of the people here." It was the first time he called me daughter with respect, not pity. Aunt Margaret sat at a corner, quietly pouring water for those nearby. She didn't complain, didn't command, didn't boast. She just worked, occasionally smiling. For her, this silence was harder than any defense. But I knew it was the start of change. I stepped back, watching it all. A wave of emotion surged: pride, relief, and a touch of sorrow. Pride because my family finally humbled themselves, blending in. Relief because my years of silence weren't in vain. Sorrow because I wished this had come sooner, sparing us so much loss. A young resident leaned in. "Didn't think the Whitmores would ever eat with us. They wouldn't even look at us before." I smiled. "Sometimes to truly see each other, you need a fall that hurts enough." He laughed, and so did I. In that laughter was irony and faith in change. As everyone raised glasses of water in a toast, I stood, my gaze sweeping over the faces, residents, kids, my family. My voice rang out, clear but emotional. Sometimes success isn't defeating someone, but pulling them towards something better. Whitmore Plaza was once a symbol of greed. Today, thanks to everyone here, it's a symbol of resilience, community, and humanity. Applause thundered, mixed with children's laughter. I saw Bradley wipe his eyes. Vanessa smiled through tears. Richard nodded with newfound pride. Margaret sighed, but her smile was genuine. The lantern's glow bathed the courtyard. Kids held hands, dancing. The Whitmores, once proud and divided, sat eating with residents as part of this community. I looked up at the glowing plaza against Portland's night sky. It was no longer cold concrete, but a beating heart of new life. I smiled softly. The plaza is saved. So is my family. But more importantly, I learned that true strength isn't proving them wrong, it's giving them a chance to find what's right, together. Maybe after hearing this story, you and I both understand one thing. The greatest value in life isn't the wealth we flaunt, but the legacy we leave in others' hearts. My family thought riches meant villas, ranches, glittering pearls. But when it all crumbled, we realized true wealth is humbling yourself, serving, and rebuilding lost trust. I share this journey not to judge, but to remind us that anyone can be underestimated, dismissed. But what matters isn't proving others wrong, it's building what's right, lasting for yourself, your family, and your community. If this story resonates with you or sparks a bit of inspiration, let me know in the comments. Follow the channel for more stories where we redefine success and legacy together, because in the end, what remains is human value.